Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Capril. Hey, I want to share with you a personal story. One of my wife's aunts died just recently. She battled lung cancer quite valiantly for 4 years and just died. I think she was about 87, 88 years old. Um, she knew she was dying for quite some time. So she had plenty of time to do planning. I think in her mind, she did planning, but in reality, she didn't do very much planning at all. Why? Because nothing that she did was particularly formal. So let me give you some of the details. It was her desire to leave certain amounts of money to certain people. And in some cases, she was able to do that by changing the beneficiary of her accounts to one particular nephew in one particular nephew who has some special needs issues. So she was able to do that and that worked. The problem was is she also had a lot of money in bank accounts, and she had, one of her nieces as a co-owner on the bank account, and she had expressed a desire to have the money divvied out, um, in a certain way. Unfortunately, none of that is legally bound. Why? Because as soon as she died, the niece became the sole owner of the bank account. It was all her money, and it's really not clear what her wishes were because it was never written down. Now, to the niece's defense, she's going to do whatever she could possibly do to make sure that the aunt's wishes are met. So, in many ways, she picked the right person. But this was bad estate planning altogether. Never, ever should have gone this way. Now, I'm not an attorney, but I do know what's good and what's bad when I see it. If you're going to make anybody but your spouse a joint owner of your bank account, that's all their money. Not a good idea. And when you die, most likely, it's all their money. So if you think legally you're putting anything in place from an estate plan standpoint, well, the only thing you're doing is you're leaving the money to that other person who has ownership on the account, right? What would have been a better way to do things would have been for her to set up a transfer on death designation for all of her heirs that she wanted to receive the money, just like a beneficiary. And then upon her death, what would have happened is one person, the executive of the estate, would have shown up at the bank with a death certificate, completed a claim form, and instantly checks would have been cut for all the members of the family according to the way the aunt wanted it to be done. Now we have a situation where one, nothing's really been articulated who gets what and what the amount should be. So suddenly now you've got all kinds of people raising their hand. Fortunately, you have other people like my wife who's like, I don't want any of it. So whatever, just do with it, whatever whatever you can. But you can see how this can be the potential for something really, really messy. I think in my wife's family's case, everything's going to be fine. I really do. There's enough people in the family who have means to where they don't have to be a part of this at all, and they're just like, hey, that's cool. If you want to give it to so and so, they could use it. Great. Okay, so I think that's going to be just fine. But that's not the case with all families. So when you have an estate plan, you really have to make sure that one, you know how it reads, and number two, as I've told you before, what your will and what your trusts say really has nothing to do with most of your accounts because most of your accounts have beneficiary designations on them. Not all, most. And if they don't have a beneficiary designation, say like your bank account, which can, by the way, but if it doesn't, then it's going to fall back into the estate. And then it's going to go through probate, which is another issue here. Because I've been the one to point out that, well, it's possible that this estate may need to go through probate. Now, in the case where she left everything by default to her niece, that account probably can be skipped. But there was really a lack of expertise here being done on what was, for the most part, a relatively simple estate. Now, normally I wouldn't get too much involved into this, but as you know, as I may have mentioned, IRS is going to add 87,000 agents to the tax rolls. Guess one of their favorite targets are going to be estates. Yeah. And so if there's any type of tax due to them, which usually there's not, but there may be some audits involved, or it may at least affect long-term gift taxing, they're going to want to know about it. So just do it right. That's all I want you to know. Just do it right. It's worth the time. It's worth the cost to get it done correctly. Take care.